The content of this video, as well as the thoughts, views, and opinions expressed herein, belong to the presenter and do not necessarily reflect the views of Brigham Young University or the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Most of us know that music is one of the ways you deal with grief, right? I never realized till Laurie passed away that all beautiful songs were inspired by her. Everybody sings about Laurie. I'm half Danish, and my mother used to say to me, the best part of you is the Danish part. And there's a Danish, most famous Danish, I shouldn't have used this. I have everything written, but this last one. Okay, there it is. I can destroy these by just getting near them. Anyway, there's a very famous Danish philosopher named Søren Kierkegaard. He wrote a whole book on love. And we can probably boil it all down to the most famous, at least for me, my favorite statement out of that whole book. And this is what he said. I think you probably would all understand and agree with it. He said, what is all this which would hinder you from loving? The decree is that you shall love. That's what the Savior and the Lord said. Thou shalt. The decree is that you shall love. But when you understand life and yourself, then it is as if you should not need to be commanded. Because to love human beings is still the only thing worth living for. Without this love, you really do not live. Now, you wouldn't be here if you didn't believe that to love human beings is the only thing worth living for. And our grief would diminish if we didn't love, wouldn't it? We wouldn't be here. We would increase the grief to increase the love. Grief is love's shadow. Now, I used to give a talk on the 5 loves of marriage. 4 of these loves are true of any relationship, parent-child. I don't know all the losses that you are here for. 4 of the 5 loves are part of any relationship, friends, parent, child, sibling. One of them is unique to marriage. The first love is passion, intimacy, romance. The second love is affection. All good marriages are going to have these 5 in varying degrees. The second love is affection, companionship, friendship. These are the compatible qualities we share. The third love is appreciation. These are the complementary qualities when we add to one another. Gratitude, appreciation. The fourth love is charity, as Paul defines it. Seeks not its own, is not easily provoked. All those beautiful qualities. Bears all things, believes all things. The fifth love is empathy, forgiveness, compassion. An understanding of the humanity, that we all have our weaknesses, and we understand that, and we have empathy. I thought those were the big 5. But you and I are experiencing another love that is very, very powerful. I call it the 6th love. It's the first love in my life now because the other 4 loves, or the other 5 loves, I only get to enjoy in memory. But the 6th love I feel now deeply. The 6th love is longing. Longing. And longing is a powerful love. It digs a depth in the soul that one day in the future, joy will fill. Longing, yearning, hunger for somebody that is no longer as deeply a part of your life. So what do we do during the longing years? You know, maybe the grave is as important as the altar in creating eternal relationships, eternal marriages. Well, I'd like to just share maybe 10 things. I'm hoping I'm going to hit everybody. This is kind of the shotgun approach. You know, you load your shotgun of ideas and you shoot them out there. And you hope that one or two hits. So here are my 10 commandments of longing. What do we do as we long? Number one, and maybe the most important, is we learn. We learn. There's a wonderful moment. I'm going to try and have a lot of other people help me with this today. A dialogue between King Arthur and Merlin when Arthur is sad. It's in Camelot. It's also in a book called The Once and Future King. And Arthur is very sad as a little boy at this moment. He's also sad later on in his life. And he says, what is the best thing for being sad? And Merlin said, the best thing for being sad is to learn something. That's the only thing that never fails you. You may grow old and tremble in your anatomies. You may lie awake at night listening to the disorder of your veins. You may miss your only love. You may see the world about you devastated by evil, or know your honor trampled by baser minds. There is only one thing for it then, and that is to learn. Learn why the world wags and what wags it. That is the only thing which the mind can never exhaust, never alienate, never be tortured by, never fear or distrust. Never dream of regretting. Learning is the only thing for you. I would sit down sometime today or tomorrow and say, what have I learned from loss? Somebody asked me, who was the greatest teacher in your life? My answer would be, death is the greatest teacher of my life. It taught me how deeply I loved. There's one of the great statements that Eve makes. I think it's the greatest thing she said, among many great things she said, when she said to Adam as they are leaving the garden, as he is going to take the fruit. He takes the fruit to stay with her. And Eve says, it is better for us to pass through sorrow, that we may know. Would you just put ... there and you fill in the blank? It is better for us to pass through sorrow that we may learn something from it. There's a great Greek tragedy writer named Aeschylus, the very first one. And in one of his very famous plays, he talked about learning, and he has an expression that I really love that I wouldn't have understood until December of 2010. He said, God whose law it is that he who learns must suffer. And even in our sleep, pain that cannot forget falls drop by drop upon the heart. And thus, in our own despair, against our wills, comes wisdom to us through the awful grace of God. That's a marvelous statement, the awful grace of God. We speak of the merciful grace of God, the forgiving grace of God, but there's also an awful grace of God that understands that loss and challenges of life, whatever you want to call them, teaches you deep things and develops character in a marvelous way. I remember once, personally, when I was engaged to Laurie here at BYU, is where I met her. It's the best thing I got out of BYU, okay? Was Laurie. And, you know, God woke up Sunday morning, and he just felt so good about everything he created. And he just looked around and he felt so happy. He said, I just need to create a few more things. I'm in such a good mood. And he created Antarctica on Sunday morning. And he created southern Utah on Sunday morning. And cinnamon. And he created Laura Chipman on Sunday morning. And when I was engaged to her, I didn't know how much she meant to her. You know, I didn't understand God's first commandment to Adam when Eve came into his life. He closed his eyes, right? And God gave these two great commands. The first words, awake and arise. And I thought all my life that meant open your eyes and stand up. But it meant something wonderful is coming into your life. Another human being. Wake, understand, and then live up to the gift that's being given to you, whether it's a child, a husband, a wife. Awake and arise. But it would take Laurie's death for me to learn that. And I remember once I was an English major here and I had to do a lot of reading. You don't read War and Peace in an evening. And I had a lot of papers to write. And I often didn't get to see her as often as she would have wanted me to do. And one day she said to me as we were talking, I was trying to explain to her the pressures on me to get through school. I will never forget it. I can see her standing on the balcony there of Chancellor apartment number 2 and saying to me, don't you need me? Now, need is not a word I would have used in my relationship with her. Love, want, but need. And I was 22 and stupid. And I didn't answer that question very well. Now I say, Laurie, ask me again. Now I know how to answer it. I need you like air and sunshine. We learn deep and beautiful and wonderful things. Death is a great, great teacher. There's a Lebanese poet named Khalil Gibran. Anybody read anything by Khalil Gibran? Wonderful, deep insight. And he wrote a book called The Prophet about a man who stays with people for a long time, teaching them, and then his boat comes and he has to leave. And all of a sudden they realize that this person that's been with him all this time is going to be gone. And we have this little exchange at the beginning of the book. The people say, let not the waves of the sea separate us now, and the years you have spent in our midst become a memory. You have walked among us, and your shadow has been a light upon our faces. Much have we loved you, but speechless was our love. Is there anything you'd like to say to that person? Oh, you told them that you loved them, but is there anything you'd like to say now? Speechless was our love, and with veils has it been veiled, yet now it cries aloud unto you, and would stand revealed before you. And ever has it been that love knows not its own depth until the hour of separation. Speak to us of love. When love beckons to you, he says, follow him, though his ways are hard and steep. And when his wings enfold you, yield to him, though the sword hidden among his pinions may wound you. And when he speaks to you, believe in him, though his voice may shatter your dreams. For even as love is for your growth, so is he for your pruning. Even as he ascends to your height and caresses your tenderest branches, so shall he descend to your roots and shake them in their clinging to the earth. Like sheaves of corn, he gathers you into himself. He threshes you and he sifts you to free you from your husks. All these things shall love do unto you, that you may know the secrets of your own heart. But if in your fear you would seek only love's peace and only love's pleasure, then it is better for you that you pass out of love's threshing floor into the seasonless world, where you shall laugh, but not all your laughter, and you shall weep, but not all your tears. We probably know a little bit about laughter and weeping and the depth of it. We learn. One day we will learn. This is Easter coming up. What's the great message of Easter? The great message of Easter, Mary Magdalene could teach you. In one sentence, she would simply say, the joys of Sunday are worth the pains of Friday. And one day we will learn that. The pains of Friday, which we are experiencing now, will one day be replaced by the joys of Sunday. We will also learn that my favorite words of Jesus from the cross, it is finished, which meant his Father's will and his sacrifice. It also meant his pain and his suffering. It is finished. And if Jesus could say that of his pain and his grief and his loss and his agonies, then all of us will be able to say that. Someday we will say it is finished, and it will be finished. We will learn that in time. Number one, learn. Number two, Gibran ended with, you will laugh, but not all your laughter, and you will weep, but not all your tears. Second is weep. The shortest verse in all Scripture, 2 words, what is it? Jesus wept. When did that, what was the context? It was Lazarus' death, and he was looking at the grief of Mary and Martha. Now, he knew in 15 minutes it was going to all be over for him. He was going to raise him from the dead, but he still wept with them. We weep. Weeping is good. I'm in my 14th year of loss, and I can tell you, I know you're not going to believe me if you're new in your loss. I long sometimes for the deep, sobbing moments of the first years. And when something comes to renew that in me, I'm grateful for the deep, sobbing moments. You can't live a whole life like that. You've got to heal somewhat. But you will long for those moments sometimes. In the Midrash, which is a Jewish collection of wisdom gathered over the centuries, is a little story about Adam and Eve. The Jews are great storytellers. That's why they dominate Broadway. And Hollywood, actually. They created Hollywood and Broadway because they're such good storytellers. This is their story about Adam and Eve. After Adam and Eve had been banished from the Garden of Eden, God saw that they were penitent and took their fall very much to heart. And as he is a compassionate father, he said to them gently, unfortunate children, you are leaving the Garden of Eden where you were living without care and great well-being. Now you are about to enter into a world of sorrow and trouble, the like of which staggers the imagination. However, I want you to know that my benevolence and my love for you will never end. I know that you will meet with tribulation in the world, and that it may embitter your lives. For this reason, I have searched out of my heavenly treasures, and I am giving you this priceless pearl. And he held out his hand. Look, it is a tear. And when grief overtakes you and your heart aches so that you're unable to endure it, and great anguish grips your soul, Then there shall fall from your eyes these tiny pearls, and your burden will grow lighter then. And Adam and Eve heard these words, and sorrow overcame them, and tears welled up in their eyes and rolled down their cheeks and fell upon the earth. And these tears of anguish were those that first moistened the earth. And Adam and Eve left them as a precious inheritance to their children. And since then, whenever a human being is in great trouble and his or her heart aches and their spirit is oppressed, the tears begin to flow from their eyes. And lo, the gloom will be lifted. Weep. Number 3, release the negative emotions and embrace hope. Now, I don't know what emotions you sometimes go through. Is it fear? Sometimes I fear, what if there is no Laurie? Never thought I'd have that challenge to my faith. What if she doesn't want me? It's a very common fear, anxiety. What if she doesn't want me anymore? Guilt. I should have. There's a wonderful little scene in France's most famous children's story called The Little Prince. I don't know if you've ever read that. He loves a rose, and the rose represents whatever you want the rose to represent, the person you love. And he says later, of the rose, she perfumed my world and lit up my life, but I was too young to know how to love her. And sometimes we have the I should have. Sometimes, as Gibran says, I just want to reveal my heart and say things to her. And when those moments come, I just want to tell her the best day of my life was the day she married me. I hear that little still small voice saying, she knows, she knows, she knows. So whatever is in your heart you want to tell them, they know. They'll hear. They know. We release the negative emotions, the guilt, the fears. Sometimes it's anger. When Laurie died, one of my sons, a boy of great faith, he's a wonderful boy. He came to me and he said, why is God taking my mother? And I said, son, God is not taking your mother. Cancer is. Why is he letting it hurt her so bad? He said, God isn't hurting your mother. Cancer is. He's in the boat with you. You know, when Jesus stills the storm, he's not out there blowing the wind. He's in the boat with you. He doesn't send these things. He doesn't have to send us trials. Life will do a pretty good job of that all by itself. He's always with us to see it through. So we release the negative emotions. When Laurie died, I cleaned out the house. You know, my daughters helped me. I went from the top and I went down, and some things the kids wanted, some things I wanted of her. Her hairbrush, a dress. She collected bracelets, used to annoy me, and then it became an endearment. I have every bracelet she ever bought. And we went all the way down to the basement, and we threw a lot away. Laurie kept a lot of things. We just threw a lot of things away. And when we got all the way down, I was midnight. The midnight, sometimes you couldn't sleep, and that still small voice came in and said, now, Mike, there's another cleansing I want you to do. It's a cleansing of the memory and the soul and the heart and the mind of every negative that you might have ever shared with this woman that you loved. Those tiny little arguments are things throw them away. Like all the other things, you throw them away. Every mote and beam, throw away. So how do I get to remember Laurie as the most perfect woman who ever walked the earth? We release the negatives and embrace the good. At the end of the Purgatorio in Dante's Divine Comedy, he drinks from two rivers. I know this is poetic, but I pray to God, please let this be true. And just before he goes into heaven, he drinks from the river of Lethe, forgetfulness, and he forgets all his sins and all his weaknesses and all his regrets. He forgets them. All the negatives he forgets. And then he goes to Eunoe, the next river that Dante invented, and he drinks from it, and every positive, every good memory comes back into his mind. Wouldn't that be lovely? I'm sure there are things that I have forgotten in my relationship with the Laurie. Sometimes somebody will remind me of something, and I'm so grateful. So release the negatives and embrace hope. Number 4, look for the attic moments of life. Anne Frank wrote a wonderful diary. It's amazing how much we can learn from a 13, 14-year-old girl. She was cooped up in this house for years, hiding, and there was a little attic window. And she would go up into the attic. She describes that she would look through that window and she could see the branch of a tree and the sky and a cloud. That's the only bit of nature she could see. And she would go up there and look at that tiny little patch and become happy. This is what she says. The best remedy for those who are afraid or lonely or unhappy is to go outside somewhere where they can be quite alone with the heavens, nature, and God. Now, she can't go outside. She can just look. Because only then does one feel that all is as it should be and that God wishes to see people happy amidst the simple beauty of nature. As long as this exists, and it certainly always will, I know that then there will always be comfort for every sorrow, whatever circumstances may be, and I firmly believe that nature brings solace in all troubles. I found there is always some beauty left in sunshine and freedom in yourself. These all can help you. Look at these things and find yourself again and God and regain your balance. And whoever is happy will make others happy too. Every day of life, there are attic moments. Little sweet things, not big things, just a dozen. You'll find a dozen every day that gives you joy and cheer, the simple little pleasures. I call them attic moments after Anne Frank. Look for the attic moments. They will always be there. Number 5, don't sit under the juniper tree, or don't camp in the cave. Now that comes from 1 Kings chapter 19, a story about Elijah when he gets so discouraged and down. He leaves the northern part of Israel, the Jezreel Valley where he's living, and he goes, Jezebel's after him. And he goes all the way down past Jerusalem, past Beersheba, way down into the Negev desert, and sits under a juniper tree and asks God to take him. He says, I don't want to live anymore, I just want to die. And an angel comes and feeds him. And he eats and sits under the juniper tree again. And the angel comes again and gives him another meal and says, continue, because he's going all the way down to Mount Sinai in this journey. He's getting as far away as he can. And the Lord says to him, he goes all the way down and sits in a cave. And the Lord says, Elijah, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? And he tells him, I just want to die, Lord. Now, there's a lot of the story in 1 Kings 19. I won't go through it all, but the Lord asked him twice, what are you doing here? And then he gives one of the great counsels. He gives him things to do. He says, return. And he gives him 3 things to do. Anoint a new king in Syria, anoint a new king in Israel, and go find Elisha and train Elisha to be the prophet who will succeed you. Sitting under the juniper tree is when we just sit there and kind of feel bad and sorry for ourselves. The reason I travel, I've gone 2/3 of the year, is it is the only way I can deal with life. I have a friend who's learning Hebrew when her husband died. Go back to school, hobby, something, act. Don't sit under the juniper tree. Don't sit in the cave. Does that make sense? Don't sit under the juniper tree. It's so tempting to. Even Nephi, the great prophet, what is the most famous, most beloved chapter that Nephi gives us? 2 Nephi chapter 4, the hymn of Nephi, when he opens his soul to us, right? You know what I'm talking about? I am encompassed by the sins which do so easily beset me, and when I desire to rejoice, my heart grieveth. You know what I'm talking about? What keys that off in him? 2 verses before he begins the hymn, his father dies. And that's what brings this out of him. And he says in that hymn, why should my heart weep and my soul, that's such a great word, and my soul linger in the valley of sorrow, and my flesh waste away, and my strength slacken because of mine afflictions. But what's the specific affliction he's talking about? He's having grief from Laman and Lemuel. But the specific one is the death of his father. Don't linger, he would say. Don't linger in the valley of sorrow. Remember, Eve said, we pass through it. I love that. It's better to pass through it, but pass through the sorrow. Don't sit under the juniper tree. Moses, chapter 6, verse 55, I never noticed the verbs. Notice the verbs in this. God speaking about the human experience, he says, they will taste the bitter, that they may know to prize the good. How long does taste last in the mouth? Not very long. You taste the bitter, but you prize the good. You prize something forever. If I were to edit that verse, I like to edit the scriptures. I said, Lord, I can fix this verse for you. Okay? I would ask, they taste the bitter, parentheses, but don't swallow it, that you may know to prize the good. Don't sit under the juniper tree. Number 6, how did Jesus deal with the great weight in the last hours of his life? Number 6, turn outward and look forward. Turn outward and look forward. Just before those hours of his life starts, he opens his heart. He says, now is my soul troubled. And what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour? How many of us would like to be saved from various hours in our lives? But for this cause came I unto this hour. I came down here to learn, remember? His soul is troubled. He says that. Then you go to the Last Supper, and some of the most beautiful statements in Christian literature that Jesus ever said, you have to read against the backdrop of the knowledge that his own soul is deeply troubled. And he says, let not your soul be troubled. Twice he says that. In the world you'll have tribulation, but be of good cheer. All those beautiful, read the Sermon on the Mount, or read the Last Supper, and you'll see Jesus, whose heart was troubled, who was carrying a great burden of sorrow, is comforting everybody else. Even from the cross, who's he thinking about? His mother, son, behold thy mother, mother, behold thy son. The thief next to him, verily, verily, I say unto thee, today thou shalt be with me in paradise. Even those who crucify him, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. He turned outward and looked forward. Paul gives us a wonderful little phrase about how Jesus got through those last hours of pain in his life. Paul says, looking unto Jesus, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross. He looked past the pain to the joy. One of the most beautiful love stories in all English literature is Elizabeth Barrett Browning and Robert Browning. Elizabeth felt Robert saved her, and he did. And they're both poets, and they wrote beautiful things to one another. And Elizabeth, the death scene of Elizabeth, I haven't got time to tell you. It's a beautiful scene as she passes with Robert, and he says, "Do you know me?" And she says, "Know you, my Robert, my heaven, my beloved." And then she dies. Robert Browning wrote a poem later called Prospus, which means to look forward. To look forward. And here's how he ends it. He said, he begins it with fear death. One thing Laurie's passing taught me, I have absolutely no fear of death. I was ever a fighter, so one fight more, the best and the last. I would hate that death bandaged my eyes and forbore and bade me creep past. No, let me taste the whole of it. Bear the brunt, fare like my peers, the heroes of old, in one moment, pay glad life's arrears in pain, darkness, and cold. For sudden the worst turns the best to the brave, the dark minutes that end and the elements rage, the fiend voices that rave shall dwindle, shall blend, shall change, shall become first a peace out of pain, then a light. Then thy breast, O thou soul of my soul, I shall clasp thee again, and with God be the rest. He looked forward to the reunion. Before she died, actually, before they were even married, Elizabeth wrote her most famous sonnet to Robert, Sonnet 43. If I started, you can at least do the first line. How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depth, breadth, and height my soul can reach, when feeling out of sight for the ends of being an ideal grace. And then she tells him how she loves him, and she ends it with, I love thee with the breath, smiles, tears of all my life. And if God choose, I shall but love thee better after death. We look forward. We look outward. Number 7, find tarrying and watching friends. When Jesus goes into Gethsemane, he takes 3, Peter, James, and John with him deeper in. You remember what he says to them? He says, my soul is exceeding sorrowful, even unto death. Tarry ye here and watch with me. I'm so grateful that in those deep, early moments, I had tarrying and watching friends. We usually don't give much credit to Job's friends, and we probably shouldn't. Job should have been 3 or 4 chapters long, that's all. Okay? We get all this dialogue, debate about philosophy. Until they say something, they're perfect friends. Here's what we read. Now, when Job's 3 friends heard of all that was come upon him, they came every one from his own place. And they lifted up their eyes afar off, and they lifted up their voices and wept with him. So they sat down with him upon the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and none spake a word unto him, for they saw that his grief was very great. They just were there, just like Peter, James, and John were there. Now they went to sleep. But you know how important they were, that they were just there because twice Jesus, in the prayers of Gethsemane, leaves talking to his Father to go out and be with those three men, just to hear a human voice, to feel a human touch, to understand there was a human presence next to them. Find tarrying, watching friends. Number 8, pour out. If you read Hannah's story in 1 Samuel chapter 1, Hannah, notice all the words. Again, I'm going to be brief on this. Hannah was, these are the words that describe her, or that she uses to describe herself. Fret, wept sore, heart grieved, bitterness of soul, affliction, of sorrowful spirit, abundance of complaint. I'm really glad she put that word in, because I complain to God. The abundance of complaint and grief, all that affliction, grief, sore. And then the phrase, I have poured out my soul unto my God. All that she poured out. And then we read, so the woman went her way, and her countenance was no more sad. Now, does one pouring out do? You pour out all of your sorrow to your Father in heaven. Just pour it out. I tell him everything. And a couple days later, it all seeps back in again. So then what do? Then you pour it out again. And you pour it out, and you pour it out, and you pour it out. Pour out. Number 9, share others' voices. Sometimes somebody else can express what you feel better than you can. Music does that. You're going to have I think one of the last things, the celloist from the piano guys, right? Is he coming? Yeah. Okay, good. I don't want to get you looking forward to something. Music is, like I say, every song's about Laurie now, all the pretty ones. Music is healing, but you find it in reading the words of other people, whether it's scripture. I find it in literature. Share others' voices. They may express it. Let me give you a few examples. Try to pick some that maybe you have read. Little Women. When Beth dies, this is a sister loss. And Joe is sitting with Beth as Beth is dying. Joe's voice was full of tender reproach, and her heart ached to think of the solitary struggle that must have gone on while Beth learned to say goodbye to health, love, and life, and take up her cross so cheerfully. You must get well, Joe said. I want to, oh, so much. I try. But every day I lose a little and feel more sure that I shall never gain it back. It's a hard thing to watch somebody slowly die. It's a hard thing. I don't know that experience of having somebody suddenly in a car accident die. It's like the tide, Joe, when it turns, it comes slowly, but you can't stop it. God won't be so cruel as to take you from me, cried poor Joe. Beth did not rebuke Joe with saintly speeches, only loved her better for her passionate affection, and I love this paragraph, and clung more closely to the dear human love from which our Father in heaven never means us to be weaned, but through which he draws us closer to himself. She could not say, I'm glad to go, for life was very sweet to her, and she could only sob out, I tried to be willing, Joe, while she held fast to her as the first bitter wave of the great sorrow broke over them together. And then my favorite part, of all Little Women. Beth said, I'm not afraid to die, Joe, but it seems as if I shall be homesick for you, even in heaven. I suppose they are. Here's Charles Dickens, The Death of Joe in Bleak House. He was a very poor boy. It's turned very dark, sir. Is there any light a-coming? It's coming fast, Joe. This is one of his tearing watching friends. Fast, the cart is shaken all to pieces. The rugged road is very near its end. Joe, my poor fellow, I hear you, sir, in the dark. I'm a-groping. Let me catch hold of your hand. Joe, can you say what I say? I'll say anything you say, sir, for I know it's good. Our Father, yes, that's very good, sir, which art in heaven. Art in heaven. Is the light a-coming, sir? It is close at hand. Hallowed be thy name. Hallowed be thy. The light is come upon the dark benighted way, dead. Dead men and women born with heavenly compassion in your hearts and dying thus around us every day. Now, just in conclusion to number 10, visualize. I'm going to do one more. This is from Edna St. Vincent Millay. I can't do the whole thing. When her mother died, Millay and her mother were very, very deeply connected, very deeply loved. And I'll come to this, visualize this 10th principle. And she wrote a poem called In Terram, meaning in the meantime. See, she talks about her crisis of faith. There's a lot in this poem that I can relate to a great deal. The room is full of you. As I came in and closed the door behind me, all at once, a something in the air, intangible. You are not here. I know that you are gone and will not ever enter here again. And yet it seems to me, if I should speak, your silent step must wake across the hall. If I should turn my head, that your sweet eyes would kiss me from the door. You were the fairest thing God ever made, I think. What is the need of heaven when earth can be so sweet? If only God had let us love and show the world the way, strange cancellings must ink the eternal books when love crossed out will bring the answer right. If I had known, but then it does not matter. Strange how few, after all is said and done, the things that are of moment, you learn what's really important in life. Few indeed, when I can make of 10 small words a rope to hang the world. I had you, and I have you now no more. There it dangles. Here, let me write it down. I wish to see just how a thing like that will look on paper. I had you, and I have you now no more. Oh, little words, how can you run so straight across the page beneath the great weight you bear? Would I could sleep and find me awake back in that sweet summer afternoon I shared with you. How easily could God, if he so willed, set back the world a little turn or two, correct its griefs, bring its joys again. We were so wholly one, I had not thought we could die apart. I had not thought that I could move and you be still, that I could speak and you be dumb. I think our heartstrings were like warp and woof in some firm fabric woven in one. Part of your heart aches in my breast still, and part of my heart lies chilled in the damp earth. I cannot call you back. I cannot even turn my face this way or that and say, my face is turned toward you now. I know not where you are. I do not know. And then in a very human way, she ends it. I am worn out. You know that feeling? I am wearied out. It is too much. I am but flesh and blood, and I must sleep. Though you were dead again, I am but flesh and blood, and I must sleep. Because it's the only release for the pain for her. Now, I would say visualize. I don't know where you are, so pick in your mind a place where that person you lost is. For me, Laurie is in the sunset. That's where she went. She's in the sunset. And every time the sun sets, I say to myself, I am one day closer to her. Don't let people tell you to move on. You don't move on. You move towards. You move towards. Every day I move towards the sunset. That's where she is. Laurie loved full moons. Every time there's a full moon, I look up and I say, that's a Laurie moon. And somewhere she's looking at it. And I feel closer to her knowing that something we both loved, we're both looking at. And every time I go in the temple and I sit before the veil in the terrestrial room, I visualize her. She's just on the other side. She's just over there. And when I go through, I look, and in my mind's eye, she's always there. The last thing I did for my wife, it's a beautiful thing. It's a lovely LDS gift to men. Women don't get to do it. They have to figure out something else. I veiled her face. Just before we pulled the lid of the coffin down, I veiled her face. Why did I do that? What did that symbolize? What does the veiling of a woman's face symbolize in whatever context it's doing? Well, who lives on the other side of the veil? God does. Her Father in heaven's on the other side of the veil. And I can't tell you how comforting it was to pull that veil over her face, repeat the last words of Elizabeth Barrett Browning's Psalm 43, right? And know where she was. She's on the other side of the veil with her Father in heaven. That's where they all are, and they will wait for us. May your years, days, months, however long it takes, of longing teach you beautiful things, powerful things, necessary things, until the time of reunion, because grief is mortal in a sense. It will have an end. As Jesus said, it is finished. One day, I'll go through that veil and she'll be there, and it will be over. And it will be over for all of us, is my assurance in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you.